Hello, everybody. This is episode 10 of Birddogs, Bourbon, and the Good Life, and we are here today with John Royer. John Royer is part owner of several companies, and we'll get into that a little bit here after a bit. John, why don't you introduce yourself? And
John Royer, and I'm here with Steve.
Yeah, you know what? That is the least amount of words I've heard this man say in the entire time I've known him. So, we're going to get back with John, and I guarantee we'll get him talking a little bit more here in a second. Part of Birddogs Bourbon in the Good Life is bourbon, and it's not actually bourbon today. It's Sazerac Rye straight whiskey. Sazerac Rye straight whiskey. It's pretty good. It is a 90 proof. Here's the interesting thing that I was reading on the back of it is that it is distributed, aged, and bottled for Sazerac Company, New Orleans, Louisiana, but it's made by Buffalo Trace Distillery in Fort Frank Hood, Kentucky. So it's actually a Buffalo Trace straight whiskey with a different name on it, basically. They do give you a website you can go to read more about them, but ultimately it's not a bad whiskey. It's a $35 bottle. The only reason I bought this one is because the guy we know at the liquor store said that it normally doesn't stay on the shelf very long, and it was odd that they had that bottle, so I bought it. Figured it'd be something interesting to show everybody on the podcast. So what we're going to do is we are going to roll into talking to Royer, John Royer. Sorry, I call him Royer. So from this point forward, if you hear Royer, I'm just talking about John. There's a lot of Royers out there with his business. So John, we're going to walk through your businesses real slowly, okay? And the first business that I would like to talk about today, and this is the one that I think's been around the longest, is your tree trimming business. Can you kind of give me a little oversight about that business, and then we'll talk a little bit about how your family got into that?
Well, it's Royer Brothers Tree Service. Now we've rebranded it as Royers because the amount of things that we do now compared to when we started. So when people saw Royer Brothers Tree Service on the trucks, it brought up more questions than answers sometimes. So
when you say you do more than just tree service, what else do you do with the company?
Well, my general answer is whatever makes money and don't get me put in jail.
Well, that's a fair statement.
But we build fence. We do a lot of crane matting. We trim trees. We clear right-of-ways. Install gates, culverts. We build a bridge or two. It's just whatever needs done on a right-of-way for utility companies. We do stuff for individuals and other businesses, but our primary thing is doing right-of-way work.
So when you say right-of-way work, a lot of people aren't going to understand what you mean by that. I do, but could you explain to the viewers what right-of-way work actually is?
Well, it's clearing right-of-ways for utility companies and gas company or electric companies, whatever they need done to keep access or create access to their lines or their lines they're putting in or anything like that.
So a right-of-way is the area in which the utility service has the rights to get on a property to manage their telephone lines, telephone poles, or whatever else they might have on the property, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So with your tree trimming business, how long have you guys been doing that?
Well, the company was started in 78.
Quite a while. How old were you in 78?
Born in 81.
Okay. So you weren't even a thought yet.
Nope.
So is working for the tree company and your other businesses, is that what you've done primarily for most of your life, or have you had other opportunities as well?
I have worked in other businesses, but when I was younger, because my dad was very adamant that we know more than just trees.
Yeah. Amen.
So I have worked in several other fields.
But you keep coming back to this.
Well,
It's what pays the bills.
yeah,
right?
when you get married and have kids and you go, where's the money and the insurance at?
Yeah. Amen. And so through this, if I understand, like I believe you said this, that your dad and your brother started the company, correct?
No, my dad and his brother
Your dad and his brother
started the business.
Your dad and his brother started the business in '78, and they've been doing that ever since. So I also believe to be true that your uncle, right,
Yes.
sold the business to your dad and your brothers, correct? You and
Well, yes.
However that works, could you explain how that?
Well, we bought, it's not quite 4 years ago, we bought his half of the business.
Okay. Just how it is.
Yeah,
You guys bought his half.
Bought
of the
his
business.
half
And
been growing ever since.
been growing ever since. And speaking of growing, you were telling me a story. You don't need to give numbers, but you were telling me a story about a really big possible opportunity you went down and bid on. You were telling me about this at one of the banquets we were at. Explain that project. You don't have to get super detailed, but it sounded like a huge undertaking.
We've bid on several, and we've done several big jobs, and we've expanded out of state, working out of state, and that's where these other opportunities are, most of them.
Yeah.
And you drive the line out or look at, you have to go see it best you can, or that's how we do it, and then talk to locals on different things, and then you put a number on what you think it's going to cost to do the job.
Yeah. And so this one, it was a pretty rough terrain, wasn't it? Am I thinking of this right?
Yeah.
You guys had to clear basically power line right-of-ways for a power company in a pretty rough area. And so the reason I'm asking these questions, So the reason I'm asking these questions is because I'm trying to get to the efficiency of your company. Through our conversation, this is an out-of-state project. It's several states away, if I understood correctly, and you'd be bringing your crew up and also hiring people in that state to work for you guys. And also, obviously, your foremans would be most likely local foremans from Kansas going up to this other state to do the work. And one of the things you said that it was far more because they had a hotel available there in the town, in one of the towns close to where you guys were going to be doing the work, and you said it was going to be because of the cost. You guys were smart enough to figure in the cost of travel and all that it was cheaper to go ahead and buy this hotel by the time it was said and done with and own the hotel than to pay for every night of hotel stay because of the number of people you're going to have there and the amount of time. Is that statement true? Were you guys looking at that possibility?
Yeah, when you go, you got to look at what you got to do to put people up, and there have been a couple places where that was an option potentially if the job goes the way you hope it does, or
Yeah.
the bidding does.
Yeah, I'm laughing here a little bit because John is not being typical John right now. I need to get John to open up a little bit and talk like John normally talks. So, with that being said, you guys, I've seen a lot of companies put in bids for things, and very few of them have the foresight to say, well, that hotel's up for sale. It's X. It's going to cost Y for us to lodge everybody. It's cheaper for us to buy this hotel. And then after it's done, either leave someone behind to manage the hotel or just turn around and resell it. And through your businesses, I think you guys do a lot of that pre-planning on how to maximize your resources when things come available. All this conversation is going to come to light here shortly. So we're going to transition over to Royer Enterprises. And Royer Enterprises currently is your hunting business, isn't that correct?
Yes.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about your hunting business and the opportunities that you provide through your hunting business altogether. So from deer hunt, bird hunt, whatever hunting opportunities you offer to anyone that might be interested in coming down and hunting with you.
Well, how in depth do you want me to get?
Very in depth on this one.
Because we started out because one of the places we hunted all the time, the family decided they wanted to lease it out. So we either had to lease it or lose being able to hunt it.
Ah.
So we leased it, and then we said, how are we going to pay for this? So we started a business so that we could continue to do what we love to do. And we do a couple of big family friends hunts. We do that a couple times a year. And, it varies from 15 to 30 people hunting. And, and it's just a good time. People we've met over the years that we've become really good friends with that come in from all over the country, and we just have a good time. But that's why we do the rest of it. But we raise pheasants. We have 3 controlled shooting areas. And we're working on things there all the time to try to improve that. We have, approximately 7,000 acres leased for hunting that we do deer hunts and turkey hunts on. We try to manage it pretty well. We try not to overhunt it. We have a fairly high success rate with the deer and the turkeys. And you have, people come in, they talk to you. We've gone to some shows, and you see people, and one of the questions they ask you is that a guaranteed kill? I can't guarantee a kill.
No.
I can't control your eye or your finger.
Yep.
So I can't guarantee that. But I can guarantee opportunity.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of houses that we block out for the hunt, for when we have hunters in. But other than that, they're on Airbnb. And they're busy all the time. But we have houses, we put them up in. My mom bought the cafe that was local cafe in the town we're at, and it was no longer open, but it is licensed now. She has a lot, license for it, and it could be open, but we use it to feed our hunters in there.
See, this is where I was getting at.
And then she has her own business that when she has sales, she opens it up for
people to get food at while the
people.
sale's going on.
Yep.
So this is where I was trying to get at earlier. And I kind of set you up a little bit because I knew the path you were going to take via the conversations we've had. So what you guys have done, you guys live in a little town of Alden, Kansas. honestly, if it wasn't for Royer Enterprises and the things that you guys do, there would be some houses in the town that may have sat empty, may not have sold. It may not be bringing in the income to the town without you guys' business there, because it's such a small town and it's out there a little ways from any of the quote-unquote bigger cities. And so you guys saw the opportunity that you were guiding hunts and that homes came available in the town, and you guys were able to purchase those homes, update those homes to fit your needs. And then also you guys noticed that the cafe came for sale, and you guys purchased the cafe, brought it up to where you guys needed it to be. Maybe it was already there, I don't know. And then you utilize it for your hunting opportunities and stuff like that, so your hunters don't have to go try to find food. This is where I was talking about trying to maximize your resources and think ahead during your business opportunities. And all these items are owned through Royer Enterprises, I believe. Maybe not. Maybe they're owned specifically with your family or whatever, but you guys utilize these through your businesses. And being smart entrepreneurs, that's the way to do it in a small town like that, so that you guys have the ability to lodge people and things like that. So break down to me, let's say this is your chance to try to sell me a hunt, John. I'm going to do upland game hunts first. Break down to me, if I was going to come out and hunt with you, or I was talking to you about coming out and hunting, break down to me what a day looks like. If I were going to come down and hunt, tell me what a standard day of hunting with you, from when I get up in the morning, the guide I get, dogs, every little detail of that day. Describe that to me as if you were trying to convince me to come hunt with you.
Well, so typically when we're doing a bird hunt, you'll get up and we'll either do, depending on the size of the group, we'll either do breakfast at the house you're staying in, or we'll make breakfast at the cafe, and everybody come down there, we'll eat, go through the safety talk that you have to do, and then we go to the field. We talk about keeping the line straight, knowing where you're shooting, all that stuff. And then we'll start hunting, and you'll hunt all morning. Then we'll go in and eat lunch. Then we'll go back out and hunt all afternoon. And usually the guides are either me, my dad, or my son. Once in a while we have a few other guys that help us out. So that's kind of that day is how that, and then after all that's done, we'll go back in and eat dinner. If you're not used to walking that tall grass and you're in a little bit of pain, my wife might show up with some Pedialyte for you to take, kind of help with the cramps and everything else. We try to do what we can to make sure you're comfortable and can hunt the next day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So when you guys are guiding, what are the dogs you guys currently use when you're guiding?
Well, currently we have short hairs, German short hairs.
Okay. So before the podcast, we were talking about how many you had and how many German short hairs do you currently use to guide, not necessarily on that trip, but how many dogs do you have available to guide?
Currently we have 4 that we hunt hard.
Okay.
That's, what we usually hunt, pretty standard, common.
Okay. Do you run four like you run 4 in the morning, have lunch, and then run the 4 in the afternoon, same 4 all day?
Yeah.
So you don't run 2 in the morning and then 2 in the afternoon?
All depends on the size of the group.
Yeah, that's true.
And, and all that stuff, how that all works out. But sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3, and and it all depends on who's coming.
Yeah, that is true.
Some guys bring their own dog,
Yeah.
and that changes things for me a little, because I have one that if they look at him wrong, he might
Decide to have a conversation with the other dog.
And that's usually not a really very nice conversation, and it's usually over pretty quick, and he usually gets his point across, and I don't want to have those problems either.
No. Matter of fact, when I guide, if someone brings their dog, I tell them, "Oh, you're more than happy to help hunt with your dog. If you want me to come out with you and walk around with you, I can. But I'm not running my dogs with your dog." Because number one, I don't know about you, it sounds like your male's fairly dominant. I run smaller German short hairs, and I don't want to be dealing with a vet bill, a dog possibly out of commission for a couple weeks with cuts or whatever may happen, right? Most of the time dog arguments or dog conversations like that don't go that far, but there's always that possibility.
Yeah.
But so I get that completely. So when you guys are working your hunts, so you guys have controlled shooting areas, and you also have the available for wild bird hunts. So let's talk about the controlled shooting area a little bit. So with a controlled shooting area, the group can purchase birds, or they can, with per person package, get X number of birds. So with your per person packages, I'm just going to say you have a per person package. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you do or not, but I'm just going to say if you do. How many birds does per person get on your controlled shooting areas?
We include 4.
You include 4,
yes.
And then they can purchase additional birds.
Yes.
So
we have hunts that don't include them, but we do have some that do.
Yeah. So the ones that wouldn't, I'm assuming, are your wild bird hunts. Yes. Your wild bird hunts would not include 4 birds. But the one thing that I try to stress to the clients I have, and I think you probably feel the same way, is I actually upcharge my wild bird hunts because I can't use that ground for anything. I can do some deer hunts or something like that on there, but I can't let anybody hunt that for anything except for your group to do wild bird hunts, especially with the population that we're seeing now, that we might only be able to hunt that field once or twice for wild birds, max, depending on what the population is that year. And because we don't want to completely deplete it, like you said, an outfitter is the most important thing that people don't understand about an outfitter, and I think you'd agree with this, and I'm going to throw you a bone and let you expound on this, is we have to manage our properties. We can't go in and just shoot everything off a property, because if we do, we don't have any game for the next year. So why don't you explain how you guys manage your properties and what you do to ensure that the wildlife has a very good living environment, good habitat, all those things, to ensure that your hunters, when they do come down for a wild bird hunt, that the possibility of wild birds being there is fairly substantial.
Well, we're pretty fortunate that our ground that's got wild birds has got pretty good agriculture around it.
That helps a ton.
And it's really good cover that's been there for longer than I've been around. And so, and it's, pretty good size, and and it's got a great population and has for a long time. There's pivots with corners on it and then there's, they've got grass corners, so the birds go back and forth, and
those are great.
And the biggest thing is managing predator. If you can manage the predator control, do it, then that's the biggest key to them, I believe. And obviously weather plays a big part as to when you get rain, don't get rain.
Yes.
because, pheasants lay eggs from April to August.
Yep.
And so you see a wide range of ages of them, and you see them all over. I travel the country a lot, and I see birds everywhere. And it's we do a lot of that. We have food plots in different places, that for everything else.
Yeah.
But as far as our wild birds, we don't really have to do a lot to manage them other than the predators.
Yeah.
Because of the ground that's around it and the guys that farm it.
And the good thing is you've got a property, at least bare minimum of one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got 7,000 acres, so you've got plenty of properties. So you have plenty of properties with, like the pivot with the corners. Those are the best places to go hunt, especially with a little snow. Those are fantastic. So you have a really good population because you have an older stand of cover that, like you said, has been around longer than you have been. And you have natural occurring via farming crops around those. So a wild bird hunter could have some pretty good success with you. Or I'm not going to dictate how many people could go across it because I don't know. I've never been on the property. But it sounds like you could accommodate numerous wild bird hunting trips across those properties because in Kansas, they're going to run, right? And you got to be smart enough to get around the bird. Not a lot of people understand that as well. So I'm going to ask, do you have openings if someone wants to come down and hunt with you for wild birds?
We currently have a lot of openings, but they fill up fast, and you just, it all depends on how you advertise and when you advertise, and
Yes.
which we usually don't do a lot of advertising because it advertises itself with the people that come.
Yeah. So if someone new hears this podcast and they're like, I'd kind of like to go down and give that a shot, their best bet is to call you soon.
Yes.
And to try to book dates and to try to get in, because I know your family quite well. I can tell you this: anybody coming down to hunt with you is going to have a really good time. They're going to be successful, because you guys wouldn't do it if they weren't. Knowing your family, you guys, you're not the type of family that's out to burn somebody. You're the type of family to create a good opportunity so those people want to come back and tell their friends about Royer's Hunts, Royer's Enterprises, and be able to hunt some more. So I'm going to do what I do best. I'm jumping subjects. So in everything that I do, in every podcast I have with people that hunt, I like to ask two questions. One's to make me laugh, and one is on a more serious side. So the first thing I'd like you to think about for a moment is what would be your funniest hunting experience? Hunting, fishing experience, one of the two, doesn't matter which. Yeah, everybody's like, you should have gave me homework on this. But I like to ask you right now. I like to hear the thing that comes up first in your head, because that's the one that really stuck with you in your life. And then after you're done with that one, what I'd like to hear is what was your most memorable, the one that kind of meant the most to you, the one that's going to stick with you forever. And I don't care which one you cover first. Just tell us before you start talking which one you're covering. But there you go, John. And again, this is odd for John not to be just right there knowing the answer. I'm picking on John. I've known John for a long time. I think John is a fantastic guy, beyond fantastic. And me and him talk a lot, so I just like to give him a little bit of a hard time. So what is your story you're going to share first?
Okay, so the funniest story I have that comes to mind first, I guess, is I got to kind of give a little background to it first. This one piece of property we have that is, we call it the Crosses, and it's the most grueling hunt you'll ever have, but it has got the best wild birds you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And we have it, and a friend of ours that comes every year, been coming for a long time, he come up and hunted, and the next year when he came back, he gave everybody hats that said, "I survived the Crosses." So the next year, or the year that he gave us those hats, another one of his friends came with him, and he came for a few years. And we're hunting, and we had hunted some places, and then one day, the next day we hunted the Crosses because it's an all-day deal.
Yeah.
And then the third day we hunted some other places, and some of them were ones we'd already hunted. And we're going along, and this friend of his that was there stops everybody, and he's like, "Hang on a second." Puts his gun down, and next thing you know, he dives on the ground. You know, everybody's seen somebody catch a bird here or there or something,
Yeah.
like that. He just caught this bird, right? Comes up with it, and it's dead. So it's a bird that had been shot like 2 days before that.
Yeah.
One of the few that we had lost, and you and I both know that there's always going to be a few of those. But
Yeah.
Depending on weather, moisture, temperature, it all
Yeah.
affects how well them dogs can smell. And so that was pretty funny. I'm not sure if it probably was funnier, but the next year when Charlie came back with his friend, the same friend, he gave everybody hats again, and it said 53 plus one. Because we had the ones that we had shot that weekend.
Yeah.
In those couple days, plus the one that
Plus the one that was
The one
already
that-
dead
the
that got
one that he
dove
caught.
on. Yeah, that is
So-
pretty funny. And just for the listeners to understand what John was getting at is, so during bird hunting, we have all skill levels of hunters that come out, right, John?
Yep.
And they might shoot at a bird that's out a little further than maybe they should shoot at. The bird picks up some pellets, goes down, breaks a wing, and then the dogs go after it, but the bird takes off and runs and hides, burrows in. And if it's super dry out with very little wind, or a ton of wind, one of the two, those dogs are going to have a very difficult time tracking that bird, especially if it's running in dry crop, because it's just not leaving much behind. So it is very reasonable and understandable to find a dead bird or a bird that's been injured couple days later. I'm a little surprised the coyotes didn't find it, but I think you guys do a little better job of managing some predator issues than some other people do. So that is pretty good. If you imagine in your mind some guy walking up saying, "Hold my gun," and just dives on top of this bird that's already dead, I bet he kind of stood up and kind of felt a little silly afterwards, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. And it's really funny when it's a fairly stocky, muscular guy that,
Dives on it.
dives on this bird.
Yeah, that's funny. So what would be your most memorable hunt?
Oh, my most memorable hunt
Yes.
is probably turkey hunting with my son.
Yeah.
He was around 12 years old.
Walk us through kind of so what really seems for me to let the audience picture kind of what you're picturing is to walk kind of the whole build up to get to the hunting itself.
Well, first of all, turkey hunting is, it's, you go out and you sit, but you have to be on target.
Yes.
Because turkeys are armored. I mean, I don't know. Cops should probably wear turkey feather vests because they block more bullets than
Oh yeah.
than Kevlar does, I think. But you have to shoot them in the head,
Yes.
or you won't kill them.
Yes.
Most of the time, they'll get up and laugh at you and run away. So my son experienced that a few times, and so and he's a very avid hunter.
Yeah.
And he's killed a lot of turkeys since. But this was his first time. We go out and, we have some really good ground. And we go out and he's sitting there, laying there in the prone position. I'm leaning against a tree. You have to be camoed up so they can't see you. And, he's laying there in a prone position. And he's working these calls, calling this turkey in. And a guy we met at a show come up, got a dog from us that we had, out of our litter. He'd give him these calls that he makes. They're Tom's teasers.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
And so he come up and he picked up a pup from us, and he gave my son these calls, and he gave him some videos that he makes to show him how to work them. And so my son is sitting there working these calls, and I'm leaning against a tree videoing, and he laid there for 3.5 hours in the prone position, not moving but other than to work his calls. And we had no blind at the time. And this was when we were first starting out with our even guiding stuff.
Yeah.
And and he spent 3.5 hours in the prone position, called that turkey in, and shot him from about 20 feet. And it was, and I got pictures of it, I videoed it, and the turkey was almost as big as he was, and he wouldn't let me carry his gun. He wouldn't let me carry the turkey. He carried it all out of the field.
So how old was he then?
About around 12.
Around 12. Yeah. I know your son. He's a strong-willed individual. I can see him, and it's really good to hear about a young person that really had the dedication to lay there for 3 hours working calls to get a turkey in.
Oh, yeah.
So about when into the call-in did you hear the turkey call back?
Oh, it was pretty quick, but they would come in and just kind of mill around the outside of our food plot, and it just took that long to get them convinced to come on in.
So he had, and here's the other amazing thing to me. He had the patience to sit there while there's turkeys out there that he can see. He didn't get up and try to sneak around to them, which I know a lot of young people. Excuse me. I know a lot of young people and adults that have a real hard time once they see the turkey. If the turkey fades back in, they kind of want to try to sneak around and get on the other side of the turkey, try to call them. That's pretty impressive that he had the patience to sit there and slowly call that turkey in over the course of 3 hours and eventually get his first tom.
Yeah, and it had a 9.5-inch beard. And,
oh, that's a nice beard.
1.25 inch, 1.5 spurs.
Oh, it's a old
he's
bird.
Made a beautiful mount too.
Oh yeah, so you guys got it mounted at your home?
Oh yeah, well it's actually at my dad's house.
At your dad's
currently.
house. Yeah. So in once you get it mounted, then he's going to remember that for the rest of his life.
Oh yeah.
And if I remember correctly, your son helps guide your upland game hunts, isn't that correct?
Yeah, oh yeah. We actually have some groups that request him, and and he does a good job, and he likes it.
Yeah.
The first time I told him he had to do it because I had some stuff with our other business that I had to do, and he was not happy until he got tipped. And then he was asking when he could do the next one.
Yeah, it's amazing how those tips have a driving factor to that, isn't it?
Yeah. But he was 14 and still learning that he wanted money or needed money, and now he jumps on any chance he can to work and do what he can to move ahead. He's done a lot with what he can do, and he can do a lot now.
Oh yeah.
He's had a lot of opportunities other kids haven't with running equipment, to hunting, just in life in general. A lot of experiences due to, one granddad is a farmer, the other one, is a partner in all these businesses, and it's just created opportunities that others
may not have had.
Yeah. Oh, we've met people from all over and got opportunities that a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
He's 12 years old. Between 12 and 14, he shot a couple elk, nice elk. And actually, his first big game kill was a 5x5 bull elk.
Wow.
And then he shot a couple of really nice, beautiful 10-point bucks. He's shot some, a bunch of does over the years.
Yeah.
And he shot some other bucks too, but his first one it's a beautiful deer. And, it's not the biggest deer.
Yeah.
But it's a nice sized deer. I mean, it's within our managed sizes.
Yeah.
And for a kid his age at the time to be able to manage not shooting the first one that walks in is pretty difficult in itself.
Yes, it is. I know adults that have that problem.
But there again, he's been hunting with us long before we ever started our hunting business.
Yeah.
He was walking fields with me at 4, carrying a pop gun, just hunting birds. And, we've gone to Florida and gator hunted and speared gators from the bank. It's just opportunities that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
And so that was probably my most memorable hunt, was sitting there with that, watching him shoot that turkey. But my brother, my dad, and I, and my son have gone on several elk hunts together. And that's, one of our things that we like to do together. It's just a good time together, even if there's times you don't hardly see anything, and there's times that you see them all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And he was with us when I shot my first elk, and it's just a lot of good memories. So it's hard but that's probably my best.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is if I ask people without kids what their best hunting experience is, they have a tendency to either say something with their parents or something with their friends, where 100% of the people with kids that I've talked to and interviewed, whether they be moms or dads or whatever, 100% of them, their favorite hunting experience was something with their kids and taking their kids out hunting. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, is that hunting isn't necessarily about always going out and killing something. Just like you said, that you guys' elk trip is as much a get-together bonding experience as it is killing an elk, even though an elk's great to kill because they taste great. But those are the opportunities that we have the opportunity to provide for our kids and stuff like that, to go out and do that. And if people plan right, anybody can plan to be able to do these things. And with that being said, you guys offer deer hunts, and you guys offer bow hunting and rifle hunting, correct?
Yes.
Do you guys offer muzzle load?
Yes.
Yes. So you guys offer bow hunting, rifle, and then muzzle loading opportunities as well. So if there was a dad out there that wanted to come down, bring their kid, give their kid the first opportunity, and I say kid, the kid could be 35, right? To have that experience, what if I was calling you, talking to you about this? Let's say my kid is 25, right? And I'm wanting to bring my kid out for his first opportunity at Kansas whitetail. Why don't you sell that hunt to me?
Well, it's good to bring the kid, but it's even better if you do it together.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, and most people come to hunt together.
Yes.
But it's just it's quality time. You in the evenings, you hang out, you visit. It's the time you don't have once you hit high school, junior high, and high school, start playing sports.
Yeah.
That time is gone because you're on the run so much. And I have 2 kids. They've both played sports. They've both, they're busy. And once you hit that certain age, I mean, from karate tournaments to baseball you just, once they get into that, and if they're not doing that stuff, they want to be with their friends most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fortunate that I think my son likes us. He seems to hang around a lot. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And he's just finished up college, and my daughter's going through high school, and, it's just a busy time, and we do quite a bit together anymore than a lot of people do, but you're just so busy you don't get that time.
Yeah.
And it just brings you back to a time when you can just be together and visit and, talk about things and just, you just work things out. Not necessarily that there's any problems, but you just get to visit and kind of get to know each other even more.
Yeah.
You think you know each other, and then you go and you spend time and visit, and it just creates a bond that is stronger than most.
Yeah.
And like I say, you have great opportunity. You can either set in blinds together, you can set in separate blinds. It just, and of course, if you're in separate blinds, you can snap each other all day, because that's what people do now, right?
Yes.
Snapchat. So.
Yes.
And some hunts we have families come in, and they're, they'll be quick. And the beautiful thing is, if you're real quick on shooting your deer, which in Kansas, if you're out of state, you get a buck tag, you draw a buck tag, you get a doe tag as well.
Yeah.
So you can go out and shoot a doe. And if you don't, want to take all the meat home, or if that's not why you're here.
Yeah.
Some people hunt for the trophy, some people hunt for the meat.
Yep.
And if you are here for the trophy, there's people that'll take the meat.
Yes.
And we have plenty of them. We usually have a waiting list.
Yeah. And that's one of the good things about outfitters here in Kansas is we don't let that stuff go to waste. We make sure it gets to the people that either need it or want it, right? So
yeah, and there's food banks that'll take it in different places. There's things for that if you don't know people, but we have, we try to give it to people that we know that, it saves them have to go to the grocery store and buy some meat. But some people fly in instead of fly, and it's just hard to fly with all that.
Yeah, it is.
So that makes a challenge too. And so a lot of people will just take what they can, but most of them we have want you to give it to somebody. If they're not going to take it themselves,
Yes.
They give it to somebody. And it's, I say, it's just an opportunity to get to spend time together or to get away. People that don't want to bring their kid, aren't bringing their kids, just coming on their own. They just need to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and their work. And, you get out there and it's peaceful.
Oh, yeah.
It's quiet. It's and it's just, you just get away. And ours are, I call them semi-guided hunts. We have a guy that guides. He walks you through kind of where the deer come from and the patterns and what kind of shows you pictures of what you're probably going to see or what's been in the area. And he hauls you out, picks you up, and we'll drop you off, we'll pick you up, and you sit out there by yourself or with whoever comes with you, unless you want us to have somebody. But most guys don't want somebody sitting in there with them and telling them, yeah, shoot that, don't shoot that.
Yeah.
Now we do kind of go over what we want you to shoot and how to recognize it, because one distinction between the deer here and the ones, in the south or the east or wherever, a lot of places, is body size.
Yes.
And the body size of the deer here are drastically bigger than the ones in other states. And one that's a monster there, it's just a so-so buck here. We've had some guys have had, some major shrinkage when they got up there. I mean, we had one buck that a guy from back east shot. He shot it at 400 yards. But he's not used to shooting 400 yards because it's so wooded where he's at.
Yep.
And the buck's body, the deer body, size of their body's not that big. And so when they're coming in, he looked like a monster because his rack was way outside his ears. And, he just looked huge. But he shot him at 400 yards and he got up there. It was a first-year buck with 12 points and split brow tines.
Wow.
So he looked like a monster, and he was a monster for his age.
Yeah. But he could have been even better next year.
But he didn't have the opportunity to be a Boone and Crockett.
Yeah.
Because he would have sure been one in 2 years.
Yes.
Because he was a 1.5-year-old deer with 12 points on his head already. And it's just abnormal anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a pretty big deer for its age, and that's a lot of points for almost any deer.
Yeah.
So on your standard deer hunting opportunities, what are the standard number of days that a person comes down to hunt?
Ours is a 5-day hunt.
5-day hunt.
Yep. And we like for people to come in the afternoon before because we have our own range where we can go out, you can shoot your rifle or you can shoot your bow, make sure everything's dialed in before you go out.
Just in case during the flight or transportation or whatever that it was off.
You never know.
Yeah, you give them the opportunity to hone that before they head into the field, which is it's a fantastic thing for them to be able to do. So with you provide deer hunting opportunities, upland game hunting opportunities. Do you guys do any waterfowl at all?
No, we're right by the Quivira Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah.
And then there's
Cheyenne Bottoms.
Cheyenne Bottoms. It's not real far away.
Yeah.
So it's hard to guide them. You have to spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
And we're so busy, it's hard to spend that kind of time.
So if a group wanted to say they know you're close, if they called you up and said, hey, can we come lodge with you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys point us in the right direction? Could you manage some of that? Do you guys have open wheat fields that maybe the geese would be on? Or
No, we don't really have any farm ground for that.
Okay.
Now there's, like I say, there's the refuges, and we can point you that way. And we've talked about it, but it's just hard to get that locked in where we're at because of the marsh and you have all the birds. You have to hit the water right, and so it's just hard to do that where we're at. Now, I mean, there are people that do it, but they spend a lot of time doing it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, guiding waterfowl is, in my opinion, one of the most time-consuming, because if you know you have a group coming in, you got to go find those birds, and you got to figure out you got to pattern those birds for weeks ahead of time when they're here, and then all of a sudden the next day they could just be gone.
And today it's warm, tomorrow it's cold. And all that changes.
Extremely weather dependent.
Now, I mean, we have people that come in and waterfowl hunt on some properties we got that, because my brother's a waterfowl hunter. And And so they have some buddies that have gone together and started their own little club for some of that kind of deal. And they, but, it changes so drastically because it might be warm today and all the ponds might be froze tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then you got to go scout the river or whatever and make sure you got access to that. And it's just a hard for us. It's just hard because of the amount of
Time it takes.
time.
And it's not like you're not doing your quote unquote day job too,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you
Between raising pheasants and, dealing with stuff at work with the other businesses and it's just keeping up with all of it. You just don't have the time to spend on the ground running down. Hey, you got 20,000 geese on your field. Can I hunt it tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then you show up tomorrow and they're on the field across the street.
Exactly.
And so if you haven't talked to that guy, then you're, SOL.
Yeah.
And it's just harder to guide than we want to
spend time with
right now.
Yeah. So let's talk about your raising of pheasants. You are on the road a lot. You spend a lot of time guiding. I know your day job, the Royer Brothers. Sorry, I'm going to call it the tree business. Keeps you extremely busy. So your biggest ally with raising the pheasants is your wife, isn't that right?
Yeah. And kids.
And kids. Yeah.
Whether they like it or not.
Yeah, I was about to say the kids is kind of like free slave labor.
Well,
I'm sure they get paid for it.
I don't know that they're free. They're expensive.
Oh, kids are quite expensive, but they think they're slave labor. So I know one time we were talking, and it was that time of year to turn the ground over in the flight pen, and I'll let you explain to everybody why you got to do that here in a minute. But I know you were headed off somewhere, and you were telling me, well, we're turning the ground over, but you better ask my wife how that's getting done because I ain't getting it done. And then she talked me through what you guys do to get the ground turned over when you're not around and all that. And, so in case someone was ever interested in buying birds from you, the first thing I'd like you to do is explain why you got to turn the ground over every year, just so everybody understands that. And then describe to everybody the size of your operation in the pens and about how many birds you guys have the capabilities of. So if someone was looking to purchase birds that you guys didn't already have allocated for yourselves, what would be the benefit of buying birds from you, I guess is my point.
Well, first of all, we stay pretty busy all the way around. And I'm not near as busy at the tree service as I used to be because of our growth and putting people in more management positions, and that's freed me up to do a lot of the other stuff now, which helps because my wife has her own day job. So we stay busy there, but you have to turn the ground over because of the disease. If you don't, disease spreads easy, and if one had anything, that birds peck anything that's on the ground.
Yes, they do.
And so it don't matter where it fell out of.
Yep.
And so if one bird has something, the next group in there is going to catch it, and that's how it spreads. And the waters, you got to clean them. And of course, obviously, as they get older, it's not as intense as when they're younger, but it's just stuff you got to stay up on.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you'll lose them. If you can't have chickens where you have wild game, otherwise they'll catch something from the chickens. And it happens just from walking from one pen into the other. And because chickens have been domesticated for a long time, and so their tolerance to a lot of diseases is
higher.
It is higher than wild game, and so you have to do things to prevent them. You have to do things to mitigate the mouse population around there.
Yeah.
Because mice, one, they'll eat your profits because they'll be eating your feed.
Yep.
And two, in the middle of the night, they'll chew off all the feathers off the tail of your birds. So then you don't have any, you have birds without tails, you know. And so you have to have something for mouse control. I mean, it's all, and our pens, we have 3 small pens with some that run beside, they're built off the side of our big pen.
Yeah.
Our large pen's about the size of a football field.
Yeah.
I'm currently putting a net back over it now because it's old time to replace it.
Yep.
And you know, over the years you learn things that make it better, you know, that you think are going to make it better, and you try different things to improve it, but you have to, you know, manage it. You got to keep it, otherwise you have other predators in there. I mean, you have to watch for raccoons. You know, they'll get in there and decimate them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you have
house cats.
Yeah, house cats usually don't bother the live ones too much if it's talking about pheasants. Now,
kill the hell out of chucker.
Chucker and quail are another story. If they get in there with your quail or your chucker, they can do some damage, but they won't. They don't do the damage that a raccoon will.
Yeah.
A raccoon will wipe out a whole pen in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I haven't had the issue too much with raccoons or coyotes. People think, oh, you got a wire around it. Coyotes aren't. A coyote will climb a chicken wire and chew through the net on the top and get in your pen.
Yes.
I haven't had that problem, but I know people that have. But I have dogs that bark all night, so
yeah,
that seems to help, I think.
Do you guys run electric fence around the outside of yours at all?
I have one around it, but I haven't ran it in a long time, but I haven't had a need to because I have so many dogs, and you know, and you know, there's owls and hawks and everything else that you have to keep your net good, or they'll be getting them too.
Yeah. Have you had owls and hawks get in the pen through the top net before?
No, but I've known people that have, and but I've chased some off, you know, in the middle of the night when I'm out there dumping feed out because I've been worked all day, and I heard something and turned around, there's a hawk sitting there, or an owl sitting there on top of the net, and you know, next thing you know, they're gone. But you know, they don't stick around too long usually if you can keep them from getting through your net the first time. I haven't had to have any real problems because, you know, once they find out they can't really
get through,
they usually move on.
Yeah. So how many birds do you guys have the capability of raising?
Well,
excuse me.
My pens will hold about 4,000 total.
Okay.
At any given time. I can run more if I stagger the ones coming in versus the ones going out, because I at this time do not have time to brood my own birds.
Yeah.
So I get them at a certain age and then raise them from there, to where I can basically turn them into those pens.
Yep.
I turn them into one pen. When I get them, they're about the size of a quail.
So
full-grown quail.
About
8
6
weeks old.
Yep.
And so I turn them into smaller pens, which I have a smaller net on, for about 30 days. And then I turn them out into the bigger pen. And that's one thing I really like about our size of our pen is, yes, it's big, and it's, when you get down in numbers, it's a pain to catch them. Because they, even though they got a little brain, they're pretty smart.
But the big pen is important for their flight conditioning.
Yes. So that's one thing that I've really been pleased with all the birds we've raised. We have not really had any complaints of any birds not flying well. And I have personally seen them get up when I've planted them and seen them fly a mile. But they get up. You hear them every night get up and fly from one end of the pen to the other. But they can fly 100 yards at a time.
Yeah.
And so they have really strong wing strength. You know, it's 100 feet wide, so they can, you know, fly any direction. They get a lot of strength by they just get up and fly every morning, every night. You can hear them, and you know, and it's very good fertilizer in there.
Oh yeah,
And weeds grow really well.
very well.
So we mow strips in ours and do the best to keep it out of the net. And when they're little, if you have any problems, it's hard to find them.
Yeah.
And as they get older, they chew the weeds down. And I mean, by the end of the season, there aren't hardly any weeds in there.
Yeah.
But they eat the bugs that are in them when you first get them. And they eat the leaves off of it and everything else. But they learn to hide. It helps give them cover. They learn how to function in that. And I like to believe that they have a higher survival rate because they do know how to hide. And now whether they do survive or not, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody believes something different. But I know we hunt wild Chinese ringnecks in Kansas.
Yes. Exactly.
So,
that's the best way to put that.
Some of them have to be able to survive. Now, I do believe there are things you can do to increase the odds. Do I think that birds that are dumped out in late November, December, January, February that are, you know, dumped out when it's nasty and snowy are going to learn to survive? I'd say their odds are pretty limited.
Yes.
But I think if people dump out hens in the spring, I think their odds are a lot higher.
Yeah.
Because there's fresh food for them, whether it's crops or there's crops all the way through. You know, there's other wild birds out there they'll get with. They all lay in the same nests. So you know, to me, some people say their eggs aren't hard enough, this, that, whatever. I don't know. I'm sure that's the case in some. I'm sure it's not the case in others, depending on location and food source.
So I have a hard time believing that their eggs wouldn't be hard enough as being pen-raised birds compared to wild birds. That would depend on the feed, right?
Yes.
That was given to them, and most of the feeds that you and I would feed our wild game birds would have the calciums and stuff like that in it to produce. Actually, they should produce better eggs than possibly what could be in the wild, because we're giving them everything they need before they're released out there. Now, what they find in the wild, that would be a different story.
Yeah,
right?
And that's what I'm getting at. Now, whether maybe they're too hard. Maybe the chicks can't get through them, but they get through them in the incubator.
Just fine.
So,
yeah.
Everybody's got their own theory.
Yeah.
My theory is if you release hens in the spring, they're going to lay in the nest with the wild birds. And even if the hen don't make it, if she lays 100 eggs, there's a chance for 100 chicks to survive.
Correct.
Which is 100 more opportunities than there was without her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same principle as the sea turtles. When we went to Mexico, my brother's wedding, and we were driving along, we rented a Jeep, was going around, we saw this van. I don't know what it said on it for sure because it wasn't in English, but they were out there collecting. They had been collecting. They were collecting the sea turtles, the baby sea turtles, and they collect them, and then when they take them back and release them at a certain time, because the most important journey for the sea turtles, in my understanding, is from the nest to the water.
Yes.
So what they've figured out or try is if they release them in the evening, so that the higher chance for them to get to the ocean, because I want to say 1% of the sea turtles that hit the water survive. So to adulthood or whatever their statistic is. So to increase the population, you increase the number of turtles that hit the water.
Yeah.
And so if you do it certain times, you have less less iguanas that are taking them out, less birds taking them out. And so the idea is to increase the number that hit the water. So the pheasants are a similar deal, right?
Yeah.
You increase the number of chicks that are being hatched in the wild, they're going to be raised with the other wild birds. They're not going to know the difference.
No.
You know, it's not real, you know, I mean, people do the same thing with kids.
Yeah.
A lot of adopted kids never know they were ever adopted.
Yeah. That's 100% true.
And they even take on characteristics, physical characteristics sometimes of the people that raise them.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to me.
Well, I can tell you that they'll take on the personality characteristics.
Yes.
I know several people that have adopted kids, and the life they would have had compared to what they do have is significantly different. And
Potentially.
yeah. Well, in this case, it was significantly different,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids didn't show any of the traits that the biological parents showed, which is good on the behavioral side. So with the statement of releasing hens out, do you guys release hens out in April?
We have, but usually I don't have any to release, and nobody wants to sell any to release because they're all laying eggs.
So that is the other thing. Here recently, the game bird industry, we've been running out of birds about late December, early January, and our controlled shooting areas can stay open until the end of April. So do you get multiple groups of pheasants in through the years?
I haven't in the past, but I am this year.
You are this year?
Yeah, but we have contracted a bunch of birds this year, so
Okay.
and it's all about the timing.
Yeah.
And we're not opposed to growing, but we want to grow at a healthy rate. You know, it takes money, and that's what, if you're not doing it to make money, I guess.
Why are you doing it?
Yeah. Well,
You might enjoy it, but
I do enjoy it. But ultimately it's to make money. I mean,
yeah.
I can find a lot of things to to do to work out. You know, I mean, who doesn't want to go throw feed sacks all day?
Yeah.
You know, a couple times a week.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you might, let's face it, you might love doing X, Y, or Z, right? And if X, Y, or Z costs money to do, right? And it is a yearly thing. If you don't bring in, either you save up just for that experience, like a vacation, you would save up. You're not going to make money on your vacation in most cases. But if you're doing something that is as expensive as raising, let's just say 4,000 pheasants a year, and you're not making money on that venture, you're either extremely wealthy and can afford to lose that much money every year, or you're not going to be doing it very long.
Yeah.
So, and as entrepreneurs, we can't afford to lose money very long.
No.
You know, when you first start something, you need to anticipate a certain amount of loss.
Well, there's a learning curve to everything.
Yes. So, through your learning curve, there's losses and there's challenges, and as you grow through that process, and then once you're past that, you have to make money at something. Otherwise, you really need to consider why you're doing it and whether you should continue doing it. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes.
So, I'm going to glance here real quick. With your all your other things, I know that, and I'm going to skate. We're going to touch on this. We're not going to dwell on it very long because we can't get in very much detail about it. But I know you and I had worked on a project.
Mm-hmm.
and we had talked about some stuff, and we had reviewed how to get certain things done to develop this idea of yours, and you were going to get a patent on this idea. So for people to understand, because there's a lot of people that will look at you and go, "Oh, just get a patent on it," right? So why don't you kind of tell everybody that may not know the challenges of getting a patent on an idea that is a very detailed idea?
So first you got your idea.
Yeah.
And then you got to figure out who's going to help you put your idea on paper if you can't do it yourself. And then you either have to jump through all the hoops yourself, or you talk to a patent lawyer and you go through all the stuff to get them to do it. And you can either do a patent search to make sure it's even viable to do.
Yeah.
Or not, but your risk is a lot higher if you don't do it and somebody has something too similar.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge is it's just expensive to do. And if you're busy like I am, it's hard to have the extra money sitting around just for that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to bite off that kind of money just for something you're not sure about.
Yeah, that's true.
Now I'm still working on that, and I haven't given up on it.
Yeah.
But it's had to take a back seat because of that. You know, we got too many other things going on.
Too many irons in the fire.
Yeah, to keep up with, and something's got to wait.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I
and
understand that.
And I got other ideas on stuff that I could patent, but like I say, it takes money, and a lot of things are, if you can think of it, somebody already built it.
Yeah, and that's and that is one of the challenges that you have to. I look at is so part of the direction of this is with Rub Me Down Barbecue, our my wife and I's barbecue company, which you had the seasoning on your food today,
Mm-hmm.
which I hope you enjoyed.
It was good.
So I had people tell me, you need to patent your rubs because they're really good and they seem to be different than most. And so I started looking into that and how to do that. And one of the big things that we were told is you can't patent a barbecue rub because there's really no real way to say that your barbecue rub is significantly different than this other barbecue rub enough to say it deserves a patent. And that touches on what you were talking about, the patent search, where you pay a lawyer or you do it yourself and they do a detailed search on your idea and they compare it to all these other things out there, and if yours isn't enough different than the other things out there, you can't get a patent on it. Or you have to fight with these other people to get a patent on it.
Which is why you pay a patent lawyer.
Yep.
Because that's their job.
Amen.
Is to once you do your patent search, he'll talk to you and tell you, yeah, I think we can do this or not.
Yeah.
And then if he thinks he can do it, it's his job to get it done.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's the other thing is those patent lawyers, it's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right, it's going to cost money. So you're looking at spending thousands of dollars. When you say it's really expensive, you're not talking about $500 or $600.
No.
You're talking about several $1,000s to pay this attorney, and then on top of that, it could take 2 or 3 years, and you've got to have everything very, very detailed for them to achieve that.
Yes. And you have the money tied up into developing whatever you're going to patent, plus whatever you're going to have to change to be able to finish patenting it, if there is something similar.
Yeah.
So that's where you run into the challenges, and I personally would love to work out a deal with a big company to
Just take care of it.
take my idea and put it in their equipment and make it work and just pay me a royalty. But I'm not real sure, one, how you talk to them, to the right person to get that done.
Well, the problem with that is you have to have the patent first.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You either have, and I'm sure there's somebody in there, but most of them don't want to pay for it.
Yes.
So that's the challenge, is getting your idea to them and protecting yourself and developing it with them to make it happen. Those great big corporations, it's just hard to get to the right person to even get your idea to get seen.
Yeah, it is. And most of the time when those big corporations see you, it's after you've already produced the product.
Yep.
And if you've produced the product without the patent, they'll just come in and steal it.
Yep.
100%, because those big corporations historically aren't too terribly concerned about you and I, right? They're more worried about their stockholders and their bottom line, right?
Well, and it all depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
Who sees it. I like to believe there's a lot of good people out there. Yeah, I can do business with them, so.
I think I would agree there's a lot of good people out there.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you get up into that higher end echelon of corporate business, the reason I'm saying this is because I have a little experience in this, dealing with this type thing. Once you get up into those higher corporate ends, you might be talking to a great guy, and then the great guy goes one level up and says, hey, I want to purchase this X, Y, and Z. This is what they're doing. And that next guy up says, really? Do they have a patent? And he goes, no, but this guy's willing to help us develop it, blah, blah, blah. We don't need him. We already got his idea. We already know how he's doing it. We're just going to go ahead and do it ourselves. That's what we have an engineering crew for. Unfortunately, I've experienced a little bit of watching some of that stuff happen. And it's too bad that does happen. But yeah, and that's one of the things in the world today, that if you don't protect your ideas, no matter what they are, it can be something simple. Perfect example is the guy I had on last week, Frank Sell. He sells a coffee brand, and he's selling a brand, and the name of the brand is Get Shit Done. So he got a patent on the phrase "get shit done," the way he had it written and everything else.
Yeah.
So nobody could steal his phrase and utilize it to because in today's world, anybody's going to, not anybody, but there are a lot of people out there that will just steal any idea and run with it. And it's really too bad that they're that way. It really is. It's disheartening to me, because when we were younger, a handshake was a deal, and that's what our folks told us. If you shook somebody's hand and said, yes, I agree, this is what we'll do, you follow through and get it done. In today's
my
world,
word is my bond.
Yes, my word is my bond. And unfortunately, in today's world, with the huge flux of lawyers and greed, I would say, a lot of people don't really hold to that anymore. They'll gouge you in the back as quick as they can. I've unfortunately had that happen a few times, where I shared ideas with people, and matter of fact, I'm dealing with a few people working on some business plans, and one of the guys I'm talking to, he's like, you just make sure you send out a non-disclosure to every person you talk to. Every single person you talk to, you make sure they sign that non-disclosure, because if they'll just steal it out right out from underneath you. So Yeah, it's a different world than what it used to be, in my opinion.
Well, and the difference is technology,
Yes.
right? The world's the same. There's good and bad, yin and yang, however you want to word
Yeah.
it. There's good people, there's bad people. And technology has just made it easier for the bad people to be bad
I would agree with that 100%.
because they can see more, everybody sees more, everybody films everything, everybody posts everything. And you know, people post that they're on vacation while they're on vacation. And they come home and their house has been robbed.
Yeah.
Well, how'd they know I wasn't home?
Because you told them you
Yeah.
weren't home.
You know, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
And without it, you know, what's that? Some people say people are Facebook tough.
Yeah.
You know, they'll say things on the other end of the phone that they won't say to your face.
Oh, yeah.
They're a lot tougher, you know. I don't know who around even remembers who Roy D. Mercer is.
Oh, yeah. I
You
know
used to hear
Roy
stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You know, he'd call people, do prank phone calls, and he talked tough. How big a boy you think I am?
Yeah.
You know. But have you ever seen a picture of him?
No.
He's not a real big guy, but he sure sounds tough.
Yeah.
You know. But he did it for gags, and you know, he could call people that people would call him to call friends or do
Yeah.
this or do that, and it was funny, and he, you know, that's why he did it.
It was more of a comedic act
Yeah.
than anything else.
Yeah, he's really funny, and he
Yeah.
pulled a lot of pranks for people, and you know, and it was just a good time for everybody. But the person getting pranked till it was over,
Yeah.
and it, you know, but that's where I get that. You know, say that is people are tougher when they're not standing in front of you.
Yeah, it's sad because I'm sure your dad had to talk with you, like my dad had to talk with me at one point in time or another, that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Your dad ever tell you that phrase?
I don't know if I heard it actually from him.
Yeah.
You know, but who hasn't heard it? You know.
Yeah.
And once it comes out, you can't put it back.
No, you can't.
You know, so, and no matter what you do in life, it changes the direction of everything and people around you,
Yes.
because everything that affects you affects the next guy that deals with you.
Yes.
You know, we have a lot of veterans out there that have their own struggles.
Oh yeah.
I've had a lot of friends, a lot of family with those struggles. They all deal with them different.
Yep.
Some can't handle dealing with them at all. You know, that's why the suicide rate of them is so high,
Yeah.
which is sad because
It's very sad.
our government don't help them like they should.
Yeah.
But you know, it's one of those things. And you listen to all the politicians; they say, "Well, we can't change it from the inside out." Well, if you can't change it, who can? You
Yeah.
can't. You know, why are you still there?
Yeah. Honestly, I've got you a cup here, and this is just completely turn it to the other side. Camo Adventures. Camo Adventures. Do you remember me introducing those at the banquet? That was that guy at the end of the live auction I introduced. They actually reach out to veterans and get them out hunting and stuff like that to give them new purpose, give them an area to talk and work out some of their problems in. It might only be a weekend or a week during deer hunting or turkey hunting or upland game hunting or whatever, but gives them the opportunity to walk through their grief they've struggled through and through wartime and stuff like that. So that's one of the I'm actually donated them a 7-person hunt to come down
to 7-person veteran hunt to come down and hunt with us through that group. That Camo Ventures, which really impressed me, is they're 100% of the money goes directly to the veterans and opportunities for the veterans. There's no administration fee. There's no salaried people. No one's getting paid. 100% volunteer. It's a really good group for veterans. As just because we were talking about veterans, I figured I'd give them a little plug. I think they're a fantastic group. And that's one of the things that I'm gonna take a huge sidetrack on you a little bit. And so a lot of people, this is one of the areas I struggle a little bit with. A lot of people say, like you said, well, the government should be doing more for our veterans, and things like that. One of the things that people may not realize is, do you realize that God set up churches to take care of people like that? And that we've gotten, society today has gotten away from churches and gotten away from going to church, gotten away from believing in God and things like that. And if all the people that say, I'm concerned about veterans, actually spent the time going to church and believing in God, giving to the church, and then the church could do its designated thing by God by taking care of the people that need that care, like widows, disabled, things like that. If you go, I can't tell you exactly where it is in the Bible because I'm not that versed in it. But I do know I had a pastor walk me through that, where the church is actually who should be taking care of these people, via direction by God. Is we as a church body, as a Christian family, should be taking care of these people and not putting our reliance on the government. I think personally, the government is so incredibly corrupt that you can't put any faith into what they say they're going to do. How can you send $40 billion to help a country when your own country is struggling so terribly bad right now? And you can't listen to the news right now without hearing about a baby formula shortage in the U.S., but at the same time they send $40 billion to help another country. That's why you can't, in my opinion, you can't have faith in the government to do anything right. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it ain't far from mine. I didn't say that I believed they could, that I had faith in them doing it.
Yeah.
I just said they don't do it as they should because they take our money to do so.
Yes.
And then they don't do it.
Amen. I'd agree with that.
You know, they're more worried about other things than, like you said, giving money to foreign countries that, you know, do I think they need help? Maybe. I don't really know what's going on there because I'm not there.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm not.
Yeah.
But in turn, they have, you know, if you're talking about, you know, over there with Russia, they have a problem with Russians invading their country over there.
Yeah.
Well, and then, you know, in the Ukraine, we have a problem with an invasion on our border.
Amen.
But we're trying to stop the invasion that's 3,000 miles away, not one that's next door.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother problem. But it's not just military veterans that are having issues. You have police officers, which is a really hard career to get into these days, or to want to because of everything that's out there. Everybody's out there to get the cop because they think the cops are all bad. I'm not going to say they're all good.
No.
But, you know, not all of them are bad.
Yeah.
And they're out there for a reason. I thank them all. Even if they write me a ticket, I tell them thanks for being out there because, maybe I was wrong, maybe I wasn't. But somebody has to be out there.
Yeah. And here's the key about what you said. And let's think about people in general. I'm going to pick on the guiding business for a little bit because you and I have quite a bit of experience in that. And we both know a guide service that was doing things wrong, right? They were breaking some laws, and they got busted. So that's 1% of the guide services out there that broke the law and did something they shouldn't do, was doing without morals. Let's just say they were this guide service was without morals because they were openly and willingly breaking laws they shouldn't break. Then you look at police officers, and there is, let's say, 1%. There's a 1 percentile doing the things they shouldn't do, abusing their powers, lack of morals, but they're trying to judge the other 99% of the police that are good, doing the things they should do, but they're all judging them on the 1%. So we need to stop judging everybody on the 1%. We need to discipline and take care of that 1%, right? And do I think the police officers have the funding they need to get all the training they need? I could be wrong on this, but I believe a training program before a police officer can go to the streets is like 6 to 8 weeks. The military sends them to a boot camp, which is a given period of time, 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 3 months, whatever it is, and then sends them to AIT, which is another training program before they're allowed to do anything. So, and I'm not completely versed on what they put police officers through, but I think a police officer should have the equivalent training that our military has before they're on the streets, and they really need some social training, right? Because some people could be good cops except for they're socially horrible. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I agree with you to a point. Not necessarily the time frame.
Yeah.
Because AIT or whatever the military calls it is another 4 to 8 weeks, maybe
something like that.
I don't really know, but that's 2 months, 3 months that they're spend getting trained before they do anything.
Yeah.
And like you said, a cop is half that.
Yeah.
So unless they go to college or whatever for that.
Correct.
Okay. So they're out here supposed to be enforcing laws, interpreting laws, and it's in that time frame.
Yeah.
That they're supposed to learn how to do that.
I don't know how that's possible.
Well, I don't either, because it takes a lawyer how many years to get through school?
Yeah.
And so if a lawyer's got to go so many to learn this or that with the law, if it's 8 years or whatever it is, then why is a cop not necessarily to that extent, but it should be more than it is, because, if they don't understand the laws that they're enforcing, how are they to enforce them?
Yeah. And
because not every cop interprets them the same way.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of it is interpretation in the time.
Yeah.
And how do I know what he's feeling when he pulls his gun? There's a guy that's come and hunted a few times, family of law enforcement officers. We were having a conversation around the dinner table like we do with our hunters. And they were talking about, he was talking about pulling his gun on somebody, and how many times he's pulled it. Well, he works in a fairly large populated area, and, it's a rough area.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about it, and, he's had guys try to pull guns on him, and to my knowledge, he's never been in a firefight. But one of the other guys sitting there said, "Why are you so quick to pull your gun?" He said, "Because I don't want to be the last one to pull it.
Yeah.
Because you might be dead if you are."
Amen.
You know, you can carry a gun all day long, but if you don't practice and learn how to be proficient with it,
It's
you're
useless.
you could potentially be more dangerous than you are safe.
Yeah. That is true.
And you're responsible for every round that comes out of that firearm,
Correct.
whether it hits the guy you're aiming at,
Or not.
or the animal you're hunting, or the person standing behind him.
Yep.
So, and it's the same thing if you go to the bar. You know, you can choose to have a drink or not have a drink. But if you hit somebody going home,
You're liable for that decision you made.
and no matter what, whether you're just blow a tire and you hit somebody, whether you have a tire come off your vehicle, it doesn't matter how it happens. You know, there was an older guy that in a town not real far from here was hauling grain. He was turning a corner with his semi. Nobody was across the street. Nobody was coming. A little girl rode her bicycle underneath him. Didn't get stopped, rode underneath him. Killed her. She was like 8 years old. And I don't remember the details. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. I think I remember this story a little bit.
Well, so we were talking about it shortly after it happened, and I said, the only bright side to that story is the fact that he was 60 years old. In his 60s. I don't remember his exact age. Because he has to live with that the rest of his life. Even though it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
And there was nothing he could do to prevent it. He has to live with that the rest of his life. And like I said, the only bright side to that story was the fact that he was in his 60s, and odds of him living another 40 years were probably pretty slim.
Yeah.
Because he had to live with it the rest of his life. A 20-year-old that did that,
Yeah.
it might have ruined his life.
And the other thing.
The other one had a life before that happened.
Yeah.
But a 20-year-old kid does it. He's got to live with it the rest of his life, and he might fall into a bottle. He might fall into other substances to forget about it. And nobody's there to help him, or nobody knows why.
Correct.
And you just don't know, because you have to live with that decision.
Yeah. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't think about is the horrors that a simple decision can create, right? Like you said, the 60-year-old man at his age might be able to, I hate to put it this way, rationalize in some ability that he couldn't control the situation, right? He couldn't control it. But then again, it could go the other way too. It all depends on that. It could end his life soon too, because he, like you said, couldn't manage that grief of running over an 8-year-old girl. But yeah, I remember a little bit about that, and that wasn't that far from here at all. But that's kind of where I'm getting at is I think our society puts a little too much faith in, and I know you don't, okay? But I know our society puts a little too much faith in what the government can do for us, how the government can help us. We have too many people today on welfare that don't need to be on welfare. I know people that are on welfare that are completely able-bodied human beings that don't need or deserve to be there. But they're relying upon the government to manage and take care of them and everything else. But I'm gonna get off that soapbox because we are at the 2 hour mark, or at least I believe we're very, very close to it. And with the look on Carson's face, I would say we're very close. So what we're going to do is we are going to wrap up the podcast. I'm going to give John one more chance to give a little promo for his businesses and let you guys know how to contact him if you're looking for any of the opportunities that his businesses could provide for you. John?
Well, like you said, we have tree trimming company. It's branded as Royers because that Royer Brothers Tree Service is the variety of things we do. Brought up more questions than answers.
Yeah.
So now it's Royers. We have Royers, .com. It's actually RoyerBrothers.com. And then we have Royer Hunts. You can look us up on the internet or you can look us up on Facebook. And that's the same thing with our tree service. And we have that. We have Airbnbs. We sell birds. We sell hunts. We have a good time. And we try to make lifelong friends everywhere we go or do everything we do. And that's been my motto for all my life. And I think my wife and kids are convinced that no matter where I go, I know people or people know me. Because everywhere we go, we see people we know. And frustrates them sometimes.
That's how my kids feel a lot, too.
But we have, a lot of opportunity, a lot of fun. Pin-raised birds, not pin-raised birds. You're out there to have a good time. Yeah, everybody likes to kill something. So that's, a lot of people, I never hunt pin-raised birds. Well, if they're the right pin-raised birds, they're still fun.
Oh, yeah.
And, to see your 10, 12, 15-year-old kid shoot one feels pretty good, whether it was a,
pin-raised or wild.
Pin-raised bird or a wild bird. And I like to think, if the pin-raised birds are that bad of flyers, should have a pretty good rate of
success rate.
Yeah. A rate of return to the truck for them.
Yeah.
And so, it's about creating memories and enjoying yourself, and they do taste good.
Oh, yeah.
And we can get quail, and chucker, we just don't raise them ourselves. Quail are hard to raise, and it takes a special person to do it, I think. Chucker waste a lot of feed, unless you do a lot of things to prevent it. And it's just hard to do in our area. It's just easier for us to do pheasants and get the chucker or the quail from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, we're out here to have a good time, and we try to have a good time with everybody. And we might give you a harder time when you miss something than you like, but we're there to have a good time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if necessary, I'll try to keep Steve away. But and if you get cold, we'll sell you a quilt too, because my mom's got a fabric store.
Yeah, you're the one thing I will touch on, and we have intentionally avoided this because we were talking about John, and the businesses John is directly involved in. So I'm gonna say a little bit, then I'm gonna have you give your mom's business a little shout out. So his mom owns this enormous building with this enormous amount of quilting supplies. You were in Colorado, and there were people that knew about the quilting shop in Colorado because they had been there. So that's pretty substantial when you're talking about this little bitty town of Alden, Kansas. So since we touched on your mom's store, tell them how they can go check that store out real fast.
Well, she has a website and a Facebook page, or they can just come in. But it's Prairie Flower Crafts is the name of it. It's in Alden, Kansas. And to my knowledge, it's the largest independently owned fabric store in the state of Kansas.
I would believe that.
There is there was a local lady that had started the store years ago, and my mom worked for a number of years, and she decided at 95 it was time to retire, and my parents live right behind it. My mom always loved it, and she knew that, and she knew my mom would keep it going. So they worked out something. My mom has been running it for roughly 8 years or so, and it's just a neat store. And there's people have been there from all over the world. I mean, I remember that when I was growing up, there was some ladies that flew in from either China or Japan or something just to go to that store.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
And that was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how they knew about it, whether it was one of them's families that had, been here, foreign exchange program, what, but they flew around the world just to come to that store. And so it's pretty neat, and it's an impressive store, and they do a lot of stuff, and it's just a neat location, and she does a lot with us. So we have booths at different banquets, or not necessarily banquets, but like
Events.
Yeah, events. Like we've been to the Turkey Federation, had booths there. We've had booths at we went to the Sportsman Expo out in Denver this year, which is where you brought up.
Yep.
And she's made quilts. We've hung them over our booth, and you'll be walking around and talking to people, and they'll, well, where's your booth at? We'll say, well, you know where that quilt's hanging? Yeah, well, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and she's donated a lot of quilts to the Pheasants Forever to auction off, or the Quail Forever to auction off, and different things like that. And then we have hunters who just buy them because she's got all kinds of neat hunting fabric, or, it's got pheasants or deer or whatever.
I know that some of the quilts she's donated to Pheasants Forever, they have been amazing quilts, and I've really enjoyed them. So what we're going to do is we're going to sign off. We don't want to keep this going too long, and John's got a little bit of a drive home. So, John, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your story. We'll get you back on. As the conversation got going, we were able to engage a little better. And I'm looking forward to having you back on if you're wanting to. So, as I always end the podcast, and John's mother, who owns Prairie Flower Crafts in Alden, Kansas, is a perfect example of why we need to do the things I'm going to talk about right now. Shop American made first. Shop local. Make sure that you shop with your local people and engage with your local families, because those are the people that are going to come out and give to organizations in your community locally. Also, when you buy local and you buy American made and you buy through the small business, you are supporting the little boy or the little girl to go to their events, whether they be soccer, dance, whatever it is, karate, basketball. When you buy from these local businesses, you're actually supporting those young people to be able to do the things that they would like to be able to try to do, instead of just supporting a CEO and who knows where. And also, when you buy American made, you help keep America strong. So thank you all for listening in. We do now have a YouTube channel, and we are going to convert all our audio only podcasts back to their video format that they've originally been made in, and we're going to have those on YouTube. For now, check out our Podbean, Birddogs Bourbon and the Good Life, and Birddogs Bourbon and the Good Life on YouTube. So looking forward to talking to you guys again. Enjoy yourselves. Good night.